Mikey, we're live. We're live to the millions of people that listen to this program all around the world on the Armed
Up to
Forces Radio Network. No,
up to 46 million people have joined us every day.
get on the armed. I'm sure there still is an Armed Forces Radio Network.
Sure.
But
How
yeah,
would you like to? How would you like to do mornings in Syria?
I'm good with that. Well, that's one of my questions: is which armed forces does it go to? Does it go exclusively to our armed forces, or does it go to the enemy as well? I
Oh,
mean,
the
it's
enemy can hear it. It's great. It's great to have the enemy hear Beyonce's new country album on Radio Syria. And also, there's this to consider: if you're not armed at the moment, can you hear it? If you don't have your armed with you,
you brought up Beyonce, and I know they did something about it on Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you saw that in the
I
weekend
did.
update.
I saw the weekend update.
Yeah, and they went back to Hootie from Hootie and the Blowfish, who is
Well,
had a bunch.
Hootie worked hard. Hootie had and the Blowfish with their breakthrough album that happened when we were living and working in Seattle
Right.
was a monster seller, and he could probably never equal that sales again. But he said, "I think I'm going to do up some country singing," and he had a lot of success doing it. And
Well, and that's what kind of bugs me. And I'm not even going to go with Hootie and the Blowfish. I'm going to go with Charlie Pride.
who had to
Okay,
do it
let's
by
go to
himself?
Charlie. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go to
how much
I
help
mean,
did he get from Johnny Cash?
you want to talk about a guy who did it by himself. I mean, there was nobody looking at Charlie Pride in country music territory and saying, that's my man. There's a dude that when he started in his career had to sleep in a separate hotel, in a separate bus. I mean, we praise Beyonce, and yeah, great. She's got a number one album in country. Big freaking deal. You know what? You want to praise somebody, go back and look at the people, the black country artists that had to endure. I mean, Beyonce travels. She's got a posse. She's got a 10 buses, trucks, everything. She doesn't. I would be shocked if Beyonce got within 100 feet of anybody who bought her album.
And speaking of artists that have earned their bones, what about P. Diddy? Hasn't he suffered enough? He
I
needs
don't
a
know.
country hit.
How has he suffered?
Have you not been keeping up with P. Diddy?
Well, I know that there's what was there a raid on his house, right?
Raid on both of his houses,
On
yes.
both of his houses. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know that there's trafficking and stuff involved, and I saw it, and I'm just
I think there's a country song in there somewhere.
I'm not a huge fan, to be honest with you. So great. It's like when they raided Jerry Lee Lewis's house. I was never a huge Jerry Lee Lewis fan. So um, I hope there's nothing to it. But it sounds like, from what I read, that there is something to it, and that he'll soon be doing duets with R. Kelly.
And what a fabulous! They can do a country album together.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again,
This
if
will this will
you're
this will leave this will leave hip hop and alternative R&B only to the country acts. It'll
well,
be
it won't. That's the thing. You know, I bet you that there's still an R. Kelly section in every record store, and that people, 3 or 4 times a week, they probably sell an R. Kelly album. Um, I was watching the NCAA's, and there was some band in a tournament playing Rock and Roll Part Two. Um, and we know about Gary Glitter and his diddling of underage kids. I think he's still in jail, isn't he?
yeah.
Yeah. You would think that a college would I mean, you don't hear it at a baseball game anymore. You don't hear it at most professional sporting events. I think somebody just let that one go by. Um, and nobody asked the question in the band, why does nobody play this anymore? Why is this not, you know? So,
And what do they mean? Whoop! There it is. Is it there or is it not there? Was it there
well,
before the
whoop,
whoop?
there it is. I don't know that who does that. I'm
Oh, the too cute crew or something. I can't remember who it was. I have it.
yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I think and here's where you get into that. Do you separate their lifestyle from their music?
Could you separate their death from their hit,
Yeah,
like the Bobby Fuller
I mean,
Four?
do you not appreciate what an artist did because of their music? And I'll be honest with you, I think most times if it's a black artist, um, they get canceled. If it's a white artist, we got to make money.
They put them on a 2 for Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that's the country we're living in today, where we put money over everything else. And the fact that I am sure, and I don't know this for a fact, but the thought that P. Diddy's records will sell more if he gets in trouble is disgusting. But it's reality. We live in a world where we have a guy who pays porn stars who very possibly could be the next president of the United States and is the former president of the United States. So what is what's a little
Well, as you know, Vinny, you have to pay them or they won't work.
that's what I've heard.
That's a generality that I think is true.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Nobody's giving up the goods if you ain't giving up, and then we'll take cash. Thank you.
It's a cash and carry business.
But I did bring my Mastercard that my little machine, my striper. What do you call it?
We take plastic.
Plugs
We
into
take
your computer so you can take
There'll
credit
be
cards.
there'll be a slight carrying charge.
It'll be a 3% to 5% carrying charge on your card.
And you'll
Because
notice that nobody will do any carrying whatsoever. No one will pick anything up and carry it from here, put it down over there. No.
no, you give us the cash and you carry it. I mean, I noticed that at a young age when my father took me to my first cash and carry store. I was like, well, isn't that what happens anyway? You give them cash and you carry it out to the car. To which my father said, "Shut up! You're not old enough to know these things." All right.
Why is this store different from all others?
Yeah. What's different about this place except that they don't have fancy music? Running in the aisles. I mean, what's difference between this and Walbaum's? Well, it's a warehouse. Well, okay. So you have to buy more stuff.
You have to buy a mustard jar that will last you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, well, we had when we were kids. My dad, for a while, I think I've talked about this before. Had a trucking company, had a couple of trucks. He used to deliver for a place called um, Brooklyn Supply that became something called NIFTA, and that was a restaurant supply place. And so everything was in Costco size cans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when my mother we had a room downstairs, and my father used to get stuff from this place and bring it home and put it in the room downstairs. So we had a room that had piles and piles. I mean, if the nuclear bomb hit in the '60s, we were the house that everybody was running to.
You'd have enough pickles to get through.
We had enough sliced gherkins and fruit cocktail and condiments to last us through any altercation. And so I remember that they used to, people would go there, and the restaurant owners could go there and buy the stuff and load it in their car. And so they put a big sign up one day that said cash and carry. And I questioned why it was cash and carry, especially because most of the places had accounts.
Explain the marketing system. If I have to pay cash and then they want me to carry it too, or do I carry it and then I pay cash, then I carry it some more?
And when I asked the boss of the place that question, my old man slapped me and said, "Go sit in the truck." But I'm 8 years old. I want to know what cash and carry means.
This makes no sense. You've got to give me more.
I'm going to be an inquisitive mind if you stop hitting me in the head. If you stop giving me the back of your hand across the back of my head, maybe
I don't know.
I'll learn something. I'm already having trouble with math.
I don't know the last time anyone in Seattle decided that they were going to get a basketball team. Every once in a while, there's this groundswell of optimism, and people think, oh, the NBA is looking at us. They're really going to do it this time. We're finally going to get the Sonics back. The team that you let go. The team you said, the hell with it. We don't need a basketball team.
Well, so anyway, the team that many of the politicians decided
was expendable.
Yeah, was okay. We don't, if nobody's going to notice if they leave town. And to be honest with you, a lot of people didn't notice. To be bluntly honest.
Well, that's true. However, over the weekend, eliminating teams to get to the Final Four, we saw two of the greatest big men to ever play the game. These guys are going to be extraordinary when they get to the pros. And I'm talking about Zach Edey and J.T. Barnes Jr., an extraordinary example of big man play that cannot be, their effect and impact on the game is going to be huge if they stay healthy. I had to look up this Zach Edey guy. He's 7'4", 300 pounds. The tallest guy to ever play in the Big Ten. No one his size has ever come through. Completely quiet. He scored 40 points and had over 18 rebounds, something like that.
Yeah.
I had to look him up and see what the deal is. The kid was born in Toronto. His dad is a Howley, a white guy. His mom is Chinese Canadian, and she's 6'3". So all he had to do was grow a foot more than his mom, and he was in. And that's exactly what he did. Extraordinary abilities. I was so impressed. He was the guy, along with his team, the Purdue Boilermakers, that eliminated Gonzaga, who had a nightmare of a second half against Purdue. They found themselves in a position where they could not and did not score for over 8 minutes.
Which is the trademark of Gonzaga.
They could not find the ball or their arse with both hands.
Didn't that happen last year to them as well, and the year before? I mean, it seems to be a theme with the Zags as they get to that final 8, that Elite 8, or even the Final Four, and they just shut down.
No, it was impressive. It was impossible to justify what was going on, except that they did not, could not, and shall not ever score again. It looked like it was their ability to play basketball just stopped in the second half, and they went minutes and minutes and minutes without scoring without even threatening to score a point. Not a 2, not a 3, not a free throw. They could not score. But that's Zags' problems. That was a gift to Purdue, who then went on to beat Tennessee in a very exciting, close game. But Zach Edey, E-D-E-Y, my God, what a player. What a monster. He's absolutely huge and so coordinated and has all the gifts and skills that he's going to need to be a shining star if the Warriors can just get him.
Well, there'll be a few other teams trying to figure that out when they have the lottery. Um, I'm actually really well. I mean, I know a couple of ex Sonics. You were talking about the songs before that are probably very happy today, and I would have to think that Nate McMillan is overjoyed because North Carolina State is in the Final Four, their
And
first
then
appearance.
and DJ Burns is one of the big reasons that they made it. It was an extraordinary, and he's another 300-pounder who's 6'9" and as big as a house, and plays with such abandon and joy. You can't say that about Zach Edey. I'm sure he enjoys the job he does, but he's pretty stoic. Where Burns, at the same time, is a bubbling, endearing personality on the court and off. He's going to be doing a lot of commercials, they said.
Well, yeah, and now that they can do them, now
Yeah.
that they can actually cash in on their fame, um, I'm okay with that. So yeah, so Nate McMillan, I'm sure, is happy, and so is our good friend Steve Scheffler,
Yeah, he's a boiler.
who is a Purdue product, a product of Purdue, as many of the play-by-play announcers would note. There's a fifth-year senior out of a Purdue product. So what I like about this is you have, three teams that haven't been there in a long time against the big bad Huskies of UConn.
They are big and bad. They're quite
Yeah,
an
they're a
array of
machine.
talent.
I
Yeah.
mean, Hurley's done an incredible job with them. It's the seventh time that they're going since 1999. So if you want to talk about dynasty, as much as you can have a dynasty in college sports these days, they're it when it comes to basketball. I think Nate McMillan was on that last team, was he? That went through the Final Four. That was 83 was the last time they went.
Wow, it's possible.
So it'd be Purdue 1980. So they probably missed Steve Scheffler because Scheffler was probably a few years after that, I'm thinking.
Well, Scheffler couldn't sit down the whole weekend. I'm sure he had quite a time watching that.
Yeah. And then for Alabama, poor Alabama isn't, you know, it's, I mean, by virtue of being underdogs, their first ever appearance in the Final Four, a number of people will root for them, but I always find it hard for people to root for teams from Alabama.
There's just too much Bama in me.
Well, there's just the long history of that school and what's gone on there, and it's like rooting for the Kansas team of Adolph Rupp. I mean, it's they're making tons of money off the backs of people that they wouldn't have let onto campus 60 years ago. But
You couldn't walk by one block off campus.
yeah, so there's always that factor. So I always find it hard to root for them. And I know things are different now, and I know we shouldn't visit the sins of the grandparents on the children. I'm aware of all of that, but it's why the South always leaves me with a bad taste. The whole thing leaves me with a less than enthusiastic rooting for any team.
And remember, that was intentional. Their idea was to be separate and apart from you, to go to war with you over rights that were
Right.
guaranteed to certain people, but prevented from ever helping those who needed it the most.
Right. If they had their way, there would have never been anybody
If they
that.
had had their way, they would have won the Civil War and killed President Lincoln.
Yeah, and
Oh,
not only that, they would, we'd have a country below us that probably still believe that a black man was not a person, a black woman, black anybody
could be bought
was not
and
a person.
sold.
That it was okay to string them up, and there's no excuse for that. I'm sorry, there's no excuse for that. And so if I don't root for Alabama, North Carolina State, I find it tough to root for them. But like I said, Nate McMillan, I'll get off of my stuff a little bit with them. But Alabama, just that history, Alabama and Georgia. George Wallace and bring always the first. Whenever I see the name Georgia or Alabama, it always brings to mind for me two people: George Wallace and Lester Maddox,
As it should.
and the images of what they both looked like when they were standing at the gates of the doors of their respective colleges, telling kids that were trying to go to school to get an education, trying to better themselves.
In Birmingham, they have the governor, and he would do
Yeah,
what you would do.
it's so that it's always, and I know I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be like that. It annoys me that I am. It makes me feel less than sometimes because I do carry those. I mean, am I as guilty as they are
For not letting it go? No.
for not letting it go? For looking at them and saying, I can't root for your school because you have this history. I don't know. I mean, I think I think it's a legitimate question, legitimate moral question. So I don't know, Michael. It's you know. I mean, I don't know who to root for out of this four. I mean, there's a piece to me that says that I'd love to see UConn repeat because the Hurley story is such a good story. So, and it's a program that is close to a dynasty in college sports, I guess, as you're going to get. And I don't know. Other than that, there's not a team here that I look at and go, and maybe I think about this too deeply. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. is, is, is I don't just look at it as sports, but I look at what's behind the whole thing. Damn,
Well,
I wish I was stupid.
I'm taken with Purdue. I'm just so taken with that team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could root for Purdue. Yeah. I mean, it's no. I'm not over.
And where would you go if you were going to find someone who knew how to make a boiler?
I'd go to the Boilermakers Union over in on Route 51 in Pittsburgh.
They make boilers.
They make boilers. They have a Boilermakers Union. They have a big building
So
right on. I think it's Route 51 in Pittsburgh. I know if our friend, some of our friends from Pittsburgh that listen probably know the building. I think it's 51, just before you get to the junction there to get into the tunnels to go downtown. But I used to pass it all the time, going south, I guess, or outbound on Route 51 the Parkway West to out 51. And I always thought of Route 51 because it always made me think of Ichiro.
Now, who I wonder needs a boiler today? I'm
Up
I'm
here,
curious about that.
I could imagine that there's somebody's going to need a boiler because it's freaking cold. Um, I don't know. Do people even heat their houses using boil? I know huge buildings do, but we had a boiler when we were growing up. There was a next to that room with with all the
With the
food.
condiments in it.
We had a boiler, and I remember it was an oil burner. We burnt oil, and I remember that I learned how to go down and prime the boiler. You had to make sure that there was two things. You had to make sure there was water in the boiler, and
Or
you
if
had to
there's
make
nothing to
sure
boil.
that if you turned the boiler off, that there was fuel going to the heating part, the thing that heated the boiler up, so that it would create steam that would go up to the radiators in the house. That's how the house was heated. And or as my grandfather on my mother's side, Parr, used to call it the burler.
The burler.
The burler. Make sure you get Earl in the burler.
Hertz Hoyt.
What? Make sure there's Earl in the burler before you start it. Didn't you just come from the cash and carry? Boom! Shut up and get in the truck.
Oy, my head.
Yeah, no, I caught it. I used to catch it a lot in the back of the head, man. I got to tell you something. I wouldn't be surprised if they take my brain apart and I get as much damage in it as any football player. You know
Well,
what I mean?
if it's cold in New York in your old neighborhood, and if it's cold in Seattle, here's a weather bulletin for you. Not this winter, but last winter, there was a huge slide in Big Sur, south of Big Sur, north of Ragged Point. And the way south, Highway 1 south from Big Sur to San Luis Obispo, Morro Bay and all that, has been closed for over a year.
Yeah, one of my favorite
Still not
drives.
open. They're working on it. They're working slowly. They had to rebuild the whole roadway and the hill below it. This weekend, 2 more slides. And they're both above Big Sur. So now the way south is closed and the way north is closed in 2 different places.
So you basically got to get a helicopter to get out of Big Sur.
Between Carmel and Ragged Point, there are 3 slides that have closed Highway 1. And they're going to have trouble. I have a good friend that lives there, but I can't get a hold of him, which makes me think that he is trapped out of Big Sur up in the northern part and can't get back. And how they're going to rectify this and how long it's going to take and what it's going to do to the community of the whole Central Coast is yet to be determined, yet to be revealed.
Well,
but that's precisely what Big Sur did not need.
Yeah, it unfortunately is a fact of life of living there.
The hill comes down. The coast is alive.
I remember when my friend, my good friend, one of my best friends, JD, bought a house in Pacifica that was up on a hill. It was part of a condo thing. And I mean, his house was built on the side of the hill, and you would look out, and his deck hung out over nothing. He was on the east side of Route 1, but up on the first bluff.
Is it still there?
Right on, yeah. If you look right under, but the next hill up, north of where he was, did slide. It was that, and there were pictures of it a couple of years ago all over the place, where the condos that were on that hill slid down onto the beach.
Same thing's happening here in LA in the Palos Verdes Peninsula.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things when you buy a house there, and I think it's been happening time immemorial, right? I mean, this didn't just start like last week. This has been happening a while. I think it's part of what you sign up for when you live in places like that.
Right.
You kind of know that one day, keep a bag by the door.
You won't be able to get in or get out.
Right. That you could be told you may have to get out of that thing in like 2 minutes.
And so if your vital needs aren't met in terms of electricity, water, food, you've got to find another way. And it could be hiking out.
Yeah, you could be hiking out, or maybe they're going to send I don't know what the situation. I would think that they send a helicopter in there to either extricate people or drop some kind of supplies to them.
We'll take you to Carmel, you buy your stuff, and then we'll take you back and drop you off.
Well, I don't know about that. See, I mean, if you take somebody out, you've rescued them. Do you have an obligation to put them back in? Or
in
is
that,
it, we got
think,
you out, it's dangerous, stay out?
well, I don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you have
But
to.
it's a tragedy in the making if they can't come up with a workable solution. And
Well,
these are not small slides. These are
right, these are
slides
major
that it takes a year,
geological events that happen that have been happening for years. I
since
mean, if you
forever.
go, um, down the Pacific Coast Highway, Route 1, from Pacifica, or north of Pacifica, actually, you come across Devil's Slide, and that whole thing had to be rerouted
Yep,
and a tunnel built, the Tom
yep.
Lantos Tunnel,
Fire in the summer, slides in the winter.
They
named
had there was
after.
no way around it, and it still moves.
And yeah, right, the tunnel moves. Um, when you're that close to the ocean, it's hard to fight nature.
Nature
Uh,
always wins these battles.
yeah, they spend billions
Plus, it's
to.
nature against Caltrans, so who's got the advantage there?
Yeah, I'm going with nature in the points.
Yeah,
Uh,
you should.
yeah, I'm taking nature in the points because you can't stop. What's the old line from ESPN? You can't stop it. You can only hope to contain it.
Yeah, you can't stop them. You can only hope to contain them.
Yeah, it's been going on for thousands of years, and for you to think that you're going to be able to come along and build a road there and it's going to stay there is mighty presumptuous of you.
They built a beautiful tunnel in the South Slide area. They fixed it beautifully. They manicured the hillside so it wouldn't slide. They manicured the below deck side so it wouldn't give way underneath. It was beautifully done. And then, like a quarter mile from there, it came down again. And that's the one that's been closed for over a year.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you can now, when you drive to Devil's Slide, the old highway is now a park. Where there used to be that. Remember that house that was on precariously perched on a hill up there? I don't even know if that house. I think that house is gone. I think that house
I know
was
where it went.
well. I'm going to guess, Mikey. I may be wrong on this, but I'm going to guess down.
Yeah. In the business, they like to call that going too far west.
Yeah, I'm going to go with. Uh, and I'm sure that global warming and the environmental crisis isn't helping any.
Well,
So
I remember I brought new windshield wipers because there was supposed to be a lot of rain this year, and it's come.
remember, I
We had a rainy weekend, and that's what brought everything down. The rain and the wind in Big Sur, much stronger than it was here in Pasadena,
yeah,
really
we
threw
had
the
a
whole
pretty
Central Coast into a cocked hat.
Chester. We had a nice weekend. I mean, it's going to get crappy again. I just saw the weather forecast. There's a guy on YouTube, Michael Snyder, that does a weather update that's better than any of the TV, the Channel 7 Pinhead weather or, whatever you see there. No offense to Rich Marriott from Channel 5, but this guy pulls out the maps and the details. He shows you the European model. I mean, in some ways, it's a little overload, but it's interesting to me. And his forecast says, and I can't remember any time he's been wrong. And his forecast says that enjoy this cool weather right now because it's going to get colder and rainier here in the next by Thursday.
Hmm.
So I'm heading up to the Tulip Festival tomorrow because tomorrow looks like the last day of not precipitation.
Before the tulips are driven into the soil by the rainstorms.
Well, yeah, because I think that when the rain comes, the farmers up there rush to cut them. Usually they leave them out there because thousands of people come to the Tulip Festival every year. But from what I can see, and I'm not a flower grower or anything like that, tulips are kind of a fragile flower. And if it gets too much rain,
Forget
and
about it.
bloomed up, you start to get a field full of petals.
And besides the tulips, what else does the festival offer?
Overpriced tulips, overpriced parking,
Overpriced beer.
overpriced beer, and very few places to park for free anymore.
What about T-shirts? Do they sell T-shirts?
Yeah, you can get a Tulip Festival T-shirt. You can get all sorts of Tulip Festival memorabilia, and you can get tulips. I mean, you can come home but the tulips you buy at Trader Joe's are much cheaper than the tulips you're going to buy at the Tulip Festival. But you have that, nice quaint towns like La Conner and Bellingham, which I love. So, I mean, I go up and I take a ride. The one thing it's really great for is photography.
The color.
If you have a car that you want to take pictures of, there's always stunning backgrounds to take pictures of cars against. Like yesterday, I went up to Camino Island, the beach up there, and it was a beautiful day because there were really pretty clouds in the sky. And you put them. I'm driving a Honda, and it's the Honda pickup truck, the Ridgeline. And if you position it right with the sun in the right position, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. The background, the water, everything that's going on there. So, in my old age, I've become very interested in photography, and showing off Washington State in different scenes. And I try to take these cars to places that people will look at the backgrounds of where I am. And I go through I go industrial, I go, natural, beach, water, obviously, but I really enjoy doing it. So the Tulip Festival for me is going to be, hopefully I'll come out with 150 nice pictures. What I'll do with them, I don't know, because I'm up to 22,000 pictures on my phone. So I think at some point I got to offload them.
You just need to buy more cloud.
I did buy more cloud. I have a ton of cloud. I actually went out and bought one of these, kind of SanDisk 1 TB hard drive things, and I've yet to be able to figure out how to make it work, because I think part of my problems with the computer is that it's overloaded with crap, and I got to figure out how to clean it up. Because as you know, I've been having computer problems the last couple of weeks. I think that's part of.
You didn't have them today, though, right?
Excuse me?
You did not have them today.
No, Michael. Today, the lords of the internet decided that you and I had something to say, so they decided to let us say it.
Well, they could have taken mercy on you because you were in a Sacramento Kings hat.
A gift from my nephew who came up to visit me last week and celebrated his 17th birthday with me on
Saturday. What school did he choose?
He hasn't chosen a school yet. He looked at UW and he looked at Seattle University. He's got a bunch of other schools that he's looking at, and I think that I don't know. I just know that I'll do anything I can do to help him choose wisely. College.
Well, you want to go to school in a warm climate so you can study more.
Well, that's the interesting thing. He lives in a warm climate, so it's not as much of a factor to him to go to another warm climate. As a matter of fact, he's looking at schools purposely that are in different climates so that he can kind of experience something different from what he grew up with. He's also looking at schools with winning basketball teams so he can experience something different than what he grew up with. No, but he's a good kid. It was great to have him and his mom up here, and there's nothing like having family come up, and and I'm his uncle, but I'm also his godfather, so I have a special kind of relationship with him, and I just really enjoy the kid. He's a good kid, smart as a whip. He's a stud jock, and he's one of those kids that I think can write his own ticket
Right.
to where he wants to go. He's that smart and that good of an athlete, things like that. Um, I hazard a guess that he could walk on to most colleges' basketball teams. He's that good. But his interests aren't overridden by athletics. His interests are much more overridden by the world situation,
Mm-hmm.
which makes me very proud of him. I'm probably one of the few, 9 million sports guys would be saying, "Oh, you got to get a scholarship, you got to do this, you got to do that." And he's looking at things like urban planning and
So
transportation.
he's not entering the portal quite yet.
No, he's much more interested, I think, in earthier, pursuits that are going to help people along the way, not $60 parking, which is what we paid to park the car on Friday night at T-Mobile Field. Um, I didn't pay it. We just got there.
T-Mobile Chevrolet University of Washington Key Arena Field.
Well, that's what I can never figure out, Michael, is they have more sponsorships than we ever. I mean, we've come a long way from hit it here and win a suit from Abe Stark at Ebbets Field to which probably cost Abe Stark about $250 a season and a couple of suits to put that sign up. But the front page of the sports section always had Jackie Robinson going in to pick up his suit.
The Yankees are winning a lot of suits. What about the Mets? Have they won any suits?
The Mets are as the Giants are finding their way. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they lost 3 out of 4 to the Brewers, or 2 out of 3 to the Milwaukee Brewers, which always bothers me because the Brewers aren't supposed to be in the National League. They're supposed to be in the American League.
Well, the Giants have done two things that I applaud. They have a very young pitching staff, which is accounting for the fact that they lost 2 out of 3 to San Diego. But they have bats, and although they don't use them as often as I would like, they're turning out to be a power-hitting team. Taro Estrada hit a home run. Michael Conforto hit 2 home runs, including a grand slam. Matt Chapman has had 2 home runs. Jung-Hoo Lee, the new center fielder, hit a home run. Across the lineup, everyone's coming up with the long ball. And this is going to bode well if they continue it, because you have to hit the damn ball. If you saw the game last night on ESPN, it was the Dodgers and the Cardinals. Cardinals had the game sewed up for a while until the Dodgers came up and started hitting the long ball. And that made all the difference. Dodgers win 5-4. So the story of the Giants is going to have to be hit the damn ball, or I'll find someone who will. And guys that are finding a slow start, and like some of our outfielders, including Yastrzemski, had better hit the ball, or they will be AAA or DFA. By the way, Joey Bart, the catcher phenom, who was supposed to be
Buster Posey's replacement.
Yeah, exactly. The successor to Buster Posey now knows what DFA stands for, because that's what happened to him.
Well, the Mariners, they didn't have a lost weekend. That matter of fact, the Friday night game was surprisingly a pitcher's duel. It was a 1-0 game won by the Mariners, and our good friend George, Kirby, was was on the mound, started that game, and then the bullpen came in and shut everything down, not without a little bit of trepidation, but they did. And then Julio Rodriguez on Saturday, I believe it was, hit his the first walk-off home run. Oh, God, I said it. The first game-winning home run of his career. And so they wound up at 2-2. Their bats are still suspect. They're still striking out at an incredible rate. But let's face it, I always give advantage pitchers the first couple of weeks of the season.
I sometimes wonder that if you keep the manager but change the team dramatically, the manager is at a disadvantage. All the things he used to do, he can't do anymore. And I wonder if Service is in that position.
Very true. Very true. He's got a much different looking club than he did. And I got to think that, I mean, you know, the other thing that I got to think about too, Mikey, is when guys come into, you know, I mean, you come from Arizona where the temperature is nice, right? I mean, at worst, it's, you know, 80 in the day and nights are a little cold. And then you come into Seattle, and although this was a nice weekend, it's like a freaking night. They're going to go play the Guardians tonight, and it's going to be cold. And I don't know who that affects more, pitchers or hitters. I'm going to think that it affects hitters more, but I don't know. I've also heard from pitchers that it affects them. They're stiffer. They can't get loose properly in the cold weather, which, you know, so we'll see what happens. But you know, 500 for, I mean, who's looking at anything the first week? You just go into the ballpark and seeing what new food they have. I had a poke bowl.
Ooh.
On Friday. Have you ever had a poke bowl?
Mm-hmm. In Hawaii.
I have to admit that I had never had one before, and I had a salmon poke bowl on Friday night, and it was delicious. It was I was quite impressed with the poke bowl.
Well, I'll have one of those anytime.
Yeah. Like I said, I hadn't had one before. Now I'm going to go seek out poke bowls.
Here's a headline today from baseball. The A's have signed a 5-year extension to their rental agreement with the Coliseum in the city of Oakland. 5 years. Now, they're in a position where nobody's going to their games. There's a protest going on. They had 13,000 for opening day. More people in the parking lot than in the stadium. And that's the way it is every night. It's a badge of courage. You go to the game, but you don't go in the game. Or you don't even buy a ticket. You just go and hang out in the parking lot during the game. Now, if that's their financial picture for the next 5 years, these idiot owners are going to have to spin that thing back to the Haas family or somebody. Larry Ellison's going to have to buy it because they're not going anywhere. Las Vegas doesn't want them. They want nothing to do with the team or their plans to put a new diamond on the strip. They've got no destination like they used to have. They've got no city that wants them. They've got a league that doesn't care about them. They got a city that hates them. They got a fan base that rejects them. Welcome to the American League.
Again, while you know, the A's have put themselves in this position, certainly by announcing their grandiose plans to move to Las Vegas before anything was signed. I hold the Giants somewhat culpable for this too, because in reality, the Giants should work out a deal where they let him move to San Jose. And I'm sure enough people in Silicon Valley would come up with enough money privately, and I'm sure the city would find a plot of land where they could build a downtown ballpark.
If I'm a millionaire in San Jose, why should I build you a ballpark when I know that as an owner you're an idiot?
Well, that's the thing. I think that part of the whole situation should be an ownership change. But as we often see in sports, yesterday's idiot is tomorrow's genius.
We don't see that
So-
often enough, I'm afraid.
So I think that I think it's a sad situation for really what was once a great franchise, and I just wish that I wish, and I totally believe that the true answer is for the Giants to work something out with the A's, for them to move to San Jose and a privately funded ballpark down there uh, would serve so many people in Northern California. It would keep the market a two-team market, which I think is a good thing. It would create a rivalry between San Jose and San Francisco that would bring in more people than the A's will ever possibly bring in the Oakland Coliseum. People in the Bay Area are afraid to go to Oakland. It's that simple. And I don't see them cleaning it up anytime soon.
Well, Oakland is unable to change its destiny in so many ways.
Yeah, I just don't see an improving situation in Oakland where they're going to have the money to build a ballpark. I mean, it's this, grandiose plan to build this thing down by the terminal there at Jack London Square, but
Not going to happen.
he's not going to give up that. Oakland's not going to pay for that.
They can't.
Nor would I ever expect him to. They need to buy police equipment before they need to build stadiums.
Well, they also have to come up with their own solution before they say this is the Giants' fault. The Giants never helped us. What the hell for? Do you think the Cubs helped the White Sox? They do not.
I don't know, Michael. I don't know if that's true. It may be. I haven't researched it enough to know for a fact if it's true. I know that there are times when the relationship between the Mets and the Yankees are good and they work together to do certain things. And there are times, especially when Steinbrenner ran things, that the relationship was bad. He didn't like the Mets. He saw them as competition. He was more concerned about winning the Mayor's Trophy game every year. People say that were close to him than winning the World Series. Because he had to live with those people. He had to see them at the clubs. He had to, at the, the New York Athletic Club or whatever. You had to run into Joan Pace in there and hey, we beat you in the Mayor's Trophy game this year. It's bragging rights for the biggest city in the country. And George didn't like to lose.
And he wasn't in the mood to help them with any of their financial problems.
Right. Once George was out of the picture, it seemed that the relationship between the Yankees and the Mets softened. Although I remember that in 2000, the famous plumbing incident fostered in a whole new era of dislike.
Tell me about the plumbing incident.
The wastewater line, the line that connects to the toilet, burst in the Yankees clubhouse. And many of the players' uniforms and personal effects and everything were shat upon. At least at the very least, pissed upon. And
remember Joe Piscopan? Yeah.
Yeah, to this day, the Yankees will always say that the maintenance people at Shea Stadium were somewhat slow to respond, shall we say, to the Yankees clubhouse being soaked.
Was it pregame, postgame, or during the game?
I think it happened during batting practice. And so there's always been a little feeling that the Parks Department ground crew kind of took
Had
a
a
little
hand in
while.
that.
Took a little while. Nobody could ever prove that they burst the pipe or that they had anything to do with that. But as far as an emergency response to fix that, it left something to be desired. And I don't know if relations have improved since then, because I haven't stayed on top of the story as much, but I know that for a few years after that, and that was 2000, the Yankees were not exactly enamored with the Mets or the city of New York, for that matter.
They couldn't be convinced that it was an accident.
Well, even if they knew it was an accident, they were lobbying the city to get a new ballpark at the time, and I think they were prone to keep their mouths shut and not agitate anybody over the gift that they were going to be given by the city of New York. Of
Well,
a
the
brand
Giants ownership are not going to give any gifts to their Cross Bay rivals. And if they continue pissing off their own fan base at the rate that they're doing it, with the firing of Brunell, the public address announcer, and the fact that they have threatened to dismantle the Memory Bridge, they would sell you a block of cement for $250 with remembrance. New York Vinnie loved the Mets, and you'd buy a box, you'd buy a square of cement. Put it up. They were gonna put the Willie McCovey statue there. So they sell all these remembrances. My dad loved the Giants type of squares for $250 each. And then they announced this weekend they're taking the whole thing out. Well, what are they going to do? Well, we're going to film it, and it'll be virtual. It'll play sometime in the future. There'll be a little picture, you can see it. And then by the time Sunday night rolled around, they said, we're not doing anything. We're leaving it just the way it is, because that's what our fans want. We want what they want. So yes, fans, you're right. But the problem was the fans weren't right. It's just that the Giants were wrong. Dreadfully, terribly, unbelievably, ham-handedly, embarrassingly wrong. And they had to rethink that. They're not going to rethink the Brunell firing. I don't know why they let her go. Something to do with it got personal somehow, and she's out.
Yeah, I didn't get that whole. I mean, I know I haven't read up on it like intensely.
Oh, we'll probably never know what the real reason was.
But she probably had to sign an NDA to get a chunk of change out of them, and so she's not going to tell anybody.
Right.
They're certainly not going to tell anybody, but something stinks there.
They DFA'd her too, just like Joey Bart.
And for those who don't know, Brunell was a long time. I don't know if she still is on the air, but she's a long time jock at KMEL.
Right.
In its kind of non-rock, post rock and roll era. But
hit radio.
Yeah, she was fairly. I don't want to say the number one personality in town in the afternoons, but she was up there. She had a well listened to show, and I met her a few times. Very nice lady. I always had good interactions with her. So for the
who filled in for Brunell? CJ Silas.
Oh, really? I
saw
something about that. Yes, I saw something. Good for her. Good for her.
I don't know who else filled in, but there were Susan Slusher should be one of them.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not a job that you have to have a ton of baseball knowledge for. I mean, you definitely have to be able to read and follow a script and everything, and
In timing, don't announce them until you get
timing.
pointed
Yeah,
at.
yeah. I mean, you have to be able to know the game well enough and look. And I don't know. It probably. I mean, I've done it a couple of times, and it certainly isn't an easy job. It looks easy. It
Yeah,
sounds easy, but it's not an easy job. You have to, you're presenting a show.
you have to
So
know
you
your
have to
onions.
know when to be enthusiastic, know when not to be. There's a lot of different components to it. But yeah, I'll pull for CJ Silas. She's a good person, and if she can if she can get that job, it would probably pain her to get that job
Because she's a Dodger fan.
because she is one of the most diehard Dodger fans I've ever met in my life. But that being considered, um, and for conspiracy theorists who want to say, well, she's just a conspiracy by the Dodgers to send to the Giants to take away the attention from Otani.
Well, given what I saw last night, the Dodgers have plenty of power, plenty of hitters, and next up on the meetings of the National League West is Giants and Dodgers get together, and that's coming up, and it could be the first. It could be the debut of our new pitcher from San Diego.
Oh, that'll be fun. I mean, I like
By the way,
youngsters.
Robbie Ray report came through. He's scheduled to return halfway through the season.
There you go. So they're not paying him all that money for nothing. They may get. Well, actually, I think the Mariners are paying a chunk of his change.
Well, that's okay with me.
Yeah, which I don't think anybody ever minds when some other team is picking up the freight for one of your pitchers, especially a guy with the potential of Robbie Ray. Problem is that uh,
You've seen the downside of his potential.
yeah, Robbie Ray didn't show much when he was here. Um, again, the Mariners tried to, you know, I mean, I applaud them for making the move. I don't think there's anybody who could have told them that this guy wasn't going to pitch well here or work out here or lose as much as he did because he couldn't get any run support. If I remember right, he had like the worst run support in 25 years in Mariner lore, which is something that probably sours the pitcher.
It's
Only so
fascinating
many
how
times you can lose a one-run game, man.
many skilled starting pitchers have traditional bad run support. Logan Webb with the Giants is one that I'm coming to mind. Robbie Ray with the Mariners. We'll see if this happens. But the opposite happens to a player sometimes when he gets traded. And Joey Bart, the catcher extraordinaire who was supposed to be everything, turned out to be less than that. He got DFA'd, and they say he could end up with the A's. And I sort of want that to happen because I would love to see, for purposes of how can you explain this, the story end with him. He goes to the A's and finally finds himself. He becomes a great defensive catcher. He handles the pitchers beautifully, and he hits 340. The kid has got physical skills that never realized themselves when he got behind the plate for the Giants, and nobody knows why. He came up through the majors hitting, showing himself to be a talent, every bit as threatening as his reputation was when he came out of minor league ball. But when he got to the Giants, he could not find himself. Didn't distinguish himself behind the plate, and he certainly didn't hit. And that's a deadly combination, even for the Giants.
I think that there are, and we've seen it time and time again, this guy is the next this guy is the next that, this guy is the next this. And the worst thing in the world to have hung on you is the label, you are the next great
Posey.
player. because the first thing you get is a gazillion reporters hanging around your locker in the clubhouse, wanting to get your quote on why you're the next whoever. The guy who suffered, I always thought maybe the most from that was Bobby Mercer, who was a Yankee for a long time. He was a Yankee, was a Cub, and he was always billed as the next Mickey Mantle. Well, there's not going to be the next Mickey Mantle because Mickey Mantle was a unique player. There's not going to be the next Willie Mays because Willie Mays was a unique player. But in efforts to market themselves, in efforts to look good to season ticket holders, in efforts to, to try to get people excited about a team, media hucksters have been saying that about players for years. There's always the next this, the next that, the next this. I remember in spring training the year Ichiro came up. Lou Piniella was asked, who is Ichiro the next? And he looked at the assembled crowd and he said, well, I think he's the next Ralph Garr. and Lou was serious. I mean, that in Lou's mind, that's what he looked at Ichiro, and that's what he saw. He saw a comparable player to Ralph Garr, who was, I believe, a second baseman for the Braves for many years, and had some very good years and some kind of off years. But he was a solid part of their infield. And
what kind of hitter was he? What kind of hitter was Ralph Garr?
He got out of the box fast, which I think was where the comparison to Ichiro was. Because I don't know that I ever saw anybody except Brett Butler get out of the box as fast as Ichiro. I mean, he just had this way of being halfway out of the box when he hit the ball. So that if he hit a ground ball, a slow grounder to shortstop, he could beat that ball out.
Yep.
I mean, he had 2 steps already when that ball was starting to travel the other way. I don't know how he did it. The one thing I do remember about Butler, though, is that he was a masterful drag bunter, which is something you never see in the game anymore.
Well, there's not too many slap hitters make it to the majors.
Yeah, I mean, these days everybody's looking for, long ball hitters. Launch it up into the upper deck. What was Mickey Mantle's famous line? Singles hitters, slap hitters, and singles hitters drive Chevys. Home run hitters drive Cadillacs. And
he would know.
He would know, yes. But again, to me, 2 of the most exciting things you'll ever see on a baseball field is the drag bunt and the suicide squeeze.
Yeah.
That just plays that you just don't know how they're going to turn out. There's so much stuff going on. There's so many moving parts to them.
And everybody's in such a hurry.
And everybody is in a hurry, but baseball is a game that if you're in too much of a hurry, does not reward you for it.
Right.
That's why they have that big E up on the scoreboard. And it's the third, in the simple scoring summary, 10 runs, 9 hits, 2 errors.
Oh, and that's how they beat them. 2 errors.
And that's how you beat somebody, is that, somebody commits an error that costs you. But again, So the whole comparing people thing, I think, has many people falling victim to it. And if you got a big ego and you don't mind it, you can be successful if you have the talent. If you don't have the talent, and who the hell has the talent that Mickey Mantle has? You it can become an albatross, a chain around your neck to have to live up to that. So hopefully we'll say a little prayer for Joey Bart that he does well on his next stop. And
I think he'll probably wake up out of his bad dream if he goes to the A's. He'll have an opportunity with no pressure to just play his own game. And he should have power. He should have the abilities that we thought he had, that we thought we were going to earn him the job with the Giants. Just to let them awaken and come forth.
Yeah, I wish him a lot of luck. The A's is a great move if they can do that, because it usually means that you don't have to move.
Right.
You can stay in your apartment in downtown San Francisco or whatever and commute to work every day. One of the most upsetting things, I think, for a player, especially at this time of year when you get DFA'd or traded or something like that, is all your stuff is now en route from Scottsdale to San Francisco. You've rented your apartment, you've got your place, and now all of a sudden you got to move again. And now your stuff, they got to find it on the way to San Francisco because it probably hasn't gotten here yet. And they got to redirect it to wherever you go.
Hoboken.
Yeah, to wherever the AAA club of whatever team. But if you get traded to the same city, you basically say, okay, my person will be home. My wife, my girlfriend, my pal will be home, and just drop the stuff off in the same place. It gives you, it's a whole component that you don't have to worry about. You know how to get to the ballpark.
When you open the door, don't let the cat out.
Exactly. You just know. There's just a sense of familiarity about it, and when you're trying to think about how to hit a ball, moving to a different city on a day's notice can, I think, be a little disconcerting, upsetting.
Distracting. Yeah, it's a distraction, definitely.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of moving parts that are going around.
I have two recommendations. Giants and Dodgers getting ready to play. As Willie Mays said, when the Giants and Dodgers played, there's always blood. Let's see if that's the case this time. We got a lot of new Giants and Dodgers who don't know about the tradition between these two teams. Let's see if they can play equal to the grand tradition of Giants and Dodger baseball. And secondly, there's a show on Netflix that I'm recommending to everyone that Kristen and I are watching called The Three-Body Problem. I can't tell you anything about it except it's science fiction, takes place in present day, has to do with visitors from another realm and unintended consequences. And it's a fascinating story with a great cast, an interesting twist about why it takes so long for people to travel from one star to another and what can happen in the intervening time. So I recommend it highly. It's called The Three-Body Problem. I won't tell you why it has that title. You'll figure that out as you progress.
Something tells me that after the first episode, I should get it.
No, it'll take about 5 episodes to figure out what the three-body problem is.
Ah, okay. Well, nothing to do with three bodies.
Not the kind of body you would think.
Okay. Now you've piqued my interest, Michael. You've
check it out on Netflix. It's a great cast, great script, great story.
All right, great. We will. All right, and then as far as everything else, we'll get together on Wednesday. Wacky Wednesday, and try to figure out the world, or try to figure out another couple of feet of this world that we live in.
Have you got your Donald Trump Bible yet?
Oh, Mikey, you know what? We were going to get through the whole show, and you made sure that an hour and 15 minutes into the show that you brought it up. I was feeling so good. I was almost on a high. I was almost like on a aspirin and Coke high, aspirin and Coca-Cola high.
Yes.
The kind of high that you drive to Canada and get the aspirin with codeine when things are really desperate. And buy a
And
bottle
when
of
you're
those.
there, you play cash cab.
Yeah, and you wind up playing cash cab, zoned out on aspirin and codeine, and probably a bottle or two of NyQuil. So anyway, no, I have not gotten, nor do I plan to get my copy of the Donald Trump Lee Greenwood. Is it Lee Greenwood? Yeah, Lee Greenwood.
Yeah. The line that the
Uh,
guy who plays Trump on Saturday Night Live used was, "It's a Bible. It's 100% Bible, made from 100% Bible."
yes, yeah. He's turned into a pretty fair Trump impersonator.
I think he's great. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody can touch Baldwin. Alex Baldwin did such a great job with that, but
He's out of favor at the moment.
he doesn't seem to be interested in doing it. Although I would think to cover his legal fees, he would probably be there every week. But be that as it may, uh, yeah, this new guy has really come along in the last. I mean, he started doing it last year, and it really caught on. And I've seen him in other stuff. I didn't like him in the game show thing. I didn't. That whole game show thing was kind of lame that they did on
It's
Saturday Night
something
Live.
they've tried so many times.
Yeah, and usually it works. But that particular game show, although I understood it, and it just wasn't that funny. But anyway,
Until Lucky
so,
Wednesday, Vinny.
Mikey, see you Wednesday if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. Until then, please, peace, love, Manischewitz, baby.
What a wine. Go Giants.
See you, Mikey. Thank you all for listening, and happy April Fool's Day to you all on this April 1st. Have a good one.